Greetings, YouTubers and live videoers. It's me, Wayman29. Had the day off, so I figured I'd come on and do a couple videos. I seen Froggy43 had a new video out. She asked the question, why is your God true and your thoughts? Organized religion. So I thought I'd take a stab at it. This is a pretty complex question because in my brain, it's like scrambled eggs. Everything just runs together. Because I found out about the influences of mythology on religion rather late. And it wasn't until I learned about the documentary theory in the Old Testament where many writers composed, because I came from a fundamentalist family who believed that the Bible was inerrant and absolute truth, and their justification for these myths would be that because the deity existed before all time, all the influences were taken from that deity by other people. Or you have it being said that the reason why there are such influences is that they once were a part of the original deity, or it would be Yahweh in this case. And then generations removed, the stories would be somewhat familiar. I mean, somewhat, the elements would be there, however, they'd forget. And that was, the falling away of the human race from the true God. So, that's how I believe a fundamentalist would see it, and at least that's how my family seen it before I started reading all this stuff. So then, I remember to this day, my buddy showing me the different writers, how he had it all mapped out. He used different colors in the first 5 books of the Bible, where the documentary theory is. Then, from Deuteronomy up to, I believe it's Joshua, it's for the most part written by the priestly caste, and they're very concerned with how things are told. There's tons of books on that stuff. At any rate, he had it all there, and he said, I started learning about this stuff. Here's the book. And this is what it looks like when it's done. And I looked at it, and my gut fell to my feet, and there it was. I was like, there were more than one writers, and he's like, yeah, right here. This is what scholars are saying, and just blew me away. Another book was Who Wrote the New Testament by I think his name is Burton Mack. I think his last name's Mack. And that totally changed my views and made me sick to my stomach when I read that, because I finally realized the grand scope of things. And so then it ended up being a huge research project that has never ended. So, still, the best definition that I have of the gods doesn't come from the biblical text. It comes from the Upanishads, and I happen to have a copy here because I was going to read it. And I just keep talking here while I look for it. I guess one of the main things is that people have been trying to prove that their God was bigger, and they've been writing about it, which is interesting because all the stories of Daniel are like that. It's Yahweh helping Daniel outsmart these other people and doing these other things and interpreting these other dreams that no other god, say if it was Babylonian, possibly Marduk, could do. And even the point where the writing in Aramaic on the wall to the king, the Aramaic words were puns, and it was said, that the leaders of the Babylonian religion were brought in. They couldn't read it simply because they didn't know the Hebrew word puns for those words. And so Daniel put it together, and it's interesting when you look at it. Daniel said to put it together and give this explanation, and you can almost see the writer or the composer of this story with a little smirk on his face, because the whole time it was a inside joke to the Hebrews. It's a pretty neat read. Anyway, I think I had part of it here. Yeah, here it is. You can't see the seer who does the seeing. You can't hear the hearer who does the hearing. You can't think of the thinker who does the thinking. You can't perceive the perceiver who does the perceiving. The self within all is this self of yours. All else besides this is grief. So, that text goes on to say, it's of the wind, but is not controlled by the wind, is of the sun, but is not controlled by the sun. So it's this, the text is trying to explain this separate being that a theist would think is out there. And, it comes from the Upanishads, so people sat around a lot longer than Christians have and thought about this stuff. Now, what's interesting is the Hindus believe that nothing is older than the Vedas. So you have issues, or the same kind of elements and belief systems as a Christian would. And then that leads us into the problem that annoys me. I talk somewhat about what annoys me, but they had this Bible come out. It was called the Archaeological Bible, which I thought was going to be a really awesome book. So I go to the bookstore and I look through it, and it does mention the creation myths, which is a huge step for the evangelicals. Probably one of the better publications that evangelicals have been putting out are the IVP, InterVarsity Press, theology books, and background commentaries. They're actually pretty good because they do acknowledge the different traditions. They do acknowledge the different mythologies that influence the particular text. But this particular archaeology Bible was put out by the NIV, New International Version. And when I looked at the flood stories, it said these are the different kinds of flood stories, and it named a few. Then what it would say, this is the reason why the Hebrew God was better than this. And it's really humorous to read something like that. So in essence, they're saying, on one hand, yeah, we can accept allegory, we can accept the myth, we can accept the metaphor, as long as it's not talking about our own religion, which is hilarious. The Catholic Church used to do it when they used to send missionaries to different parts of the world and to pagan nations and the things, and they tried to integrate the beliefs into the local belief system. That's all well and good if the graft took and it grew, fine, but it's all allegory and we know it. But then they can come back and take communion and think that it's the actual, believe that it's the actual body and blood of Christ, literally. which I always found fascinating. I don't know if I answered your questions, but maybe I made some people think about things. So I enjoyed your post, and I enjoyed doing the response. It was loads of fun. Take care. And I like the crickets in the background. It adds a kind of night ambience